ETC to come down tonight. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Maureen O'Hagan, also known as Mo, and for the last 3.5 years I've been the Associate Director over at Environmental Traveling Companions, or ETC. Just out of curiosity, how many people in this room have heard of us before? We got a couple. Has anybody been on a trip with us? Okay, so good. This is new information. Environmental Traveling Companions is a nonprofit that has been around for the last 42 years. You think we would do a better job of advertising such that everybody in the room knew about us, but that's why we come out and run these outreach events to spread the word one group at a time. We started back in the 70s as a whitewater rafting company that was pretty much a nonprofit from the get-go. Back when whitewater rafting was becoming an actual sport, when they were first developing the rafts and the techniques and all of that fun stuff and turning it into some recreational activity, there was a group of friends hanging out on the Stanislaus River here in California, and they had a few friends who had some disabilities, and they said, well, why aren't we taking them rafting with us? And from the get-go, we were like the first accessible adventure company pretty much in the United States. The Stanislaus River, unfortunately, was dammed, but lucky for us, we were able to move our operation over to the South Fork of the American River that is located outside of Sacramento on your way up to Lake Tahoe, and we own our own river property up there and have made it completely accessible and totally green. And we have now expanded into many other outdoor adventure activities as well. Since we are a nonprofit, our goal, our mission is twofold. One, to make outdoor recreation accessible to everybody, regardless of physical abilities. And two, to make it financially accessible as well. So everything we do on a sliding scale scholarship basis. And we almost never turn anybody away. We will figure out a way to make it happen. All right, I'm blocking that, so I'll move over here. Got some slides to take us through. Our official mission, ETC makes the joy and challenge of outdoor adventures accessible to people with disabilities and disadvantaged youth, inspiring self-confidence, connection to nature, and stewardship of the environment. We always try to throw in some environmental stewardship as we raft and kayak and ski in the various places we go, so people become better stewards of the land. And in addition to serving people with disabilities, I would say about half of our clientele really are at-risk youth, kids who don't have access to afford to be able to go into the wilderness, who come from an area where people don't go out and go hiking or go to the beach or go swimming or rafting. So we make it very accessible for them. I'm here tonight to basically sell you on our program and hopefully get you guys out on some trips. It's fun and rewarding. If you have a group of people and want to do like a team building or a group bonding, be that a family, friends, work group, we will work with anybody to get them out. It's pretty challenging, and nothing is better than getting out in the outdoor world. Specifically, we have 4 separate programs at this point in time at ETC. We've got our whitewater rafting, we've got our sea kayaking, we have a cross-country skiing program, and we have a youth leadership program. And I will go through each of these a little more specifically so you have an idea of where we go, what type of adventures you could join, and at the end we'll talk about how you would actually get yourself out there on one of the adventures. I will start with the wonderful world of whitewater rafting. Woohoo! I'm totally biased. It is my favorite. I was a whitewater raft guide way before I came to ETC. I got involved playing on rivers back when I was in college. I thought it would be a fun summer job for a year or two to make some money in between, summer sessions in college. And next thing you know, I magically always worked a school schedule and had summers off, and I spent 10 years of my life working as a commercial raft guide. Awesome. Everybody should do it. It's great. If you don't know how to swim or you're scared of water, that's fine too. A little bit about our river camp. I'm going to be totally biased here, but also truthful. We have the most beautiful river camp set up in all of the Coloma Valley. There's about 25 commercial rafting companies up on this river. It's about 3 hours outside of the Bay Area, maybe 3.5 from here, especially because the traffic we hit tonight. We're physically on the river itself. This is a view from the bank of the river that's right down from our river camp. We have a few buildings that are on the campground. This is what we call the river house. The sliding glass doors slide open. You get a view down to our commercial outdoor kitchen and then the river itself. This is our bathroom building over on this side. We do have accessible bathrooms and showers. Although most folks are just coming up for a 1 to 2 day trip, we do ask that most of our participants try not to use the showers when they're there unless it's medically necessary. We do work on a sump system, so if everybody came through, took a shower, we'd be overflowing. But we do have great showers. There's a commercial kitchen. We have various campground areas accessible. We have some spots down closer to the river. We have some spots that are just across from the bathrooms. All of our trails are graded so that it's accessible access, so everybody can get up if they're using chairs. And we do have quite a few wooden platforms that are built raised off of the ground. So you can put your tent on top of the platforms or lay out your tarp and sleeping bag. It's typically really warm up there in the summer, close to 100 during the day, maybe 70 at night, so it's great to sleep out. There's not a whole lot of bugs. But it's nice having the platforms raised. That makes for a lot easier transfer from chairs onto sleeping. You would need to use your own sleeping bags and pads, but if that is an issue for you, we do have extras. We just don't regularly rent them out, but we definitely have them there if you need them. We don't want somebody to go just buy for this one trip, so just let us know. So the campsite is beautiful, accessible restrooms, accessible pathways. Where are we? You say, does anybody know about the California Gold Rush history, Sutter's Mill, where they first discovered gold? Woohoo! Our campsite literally is like 1.5 miles downstream of the location of Sutter's Mill. So here we are down in San Jose, outside of Sacramento on your way to Lake Tahoe. We are right here, right in between Auburn and Placerville. Takes about 3 hours to get there. And that's probably the biggest limitation for folks coming up and going rafting is your trip starts up there. So for a lot of our people, transportation to and from is the biggest issue. But if you get yourself there, that's awesome. So our trips on the South Fork is American. They're Class 2 and Class 3 rapids. So what that means is it's going to be a fun, exciting day, but it's not going to be scary going over 20-foot waterfalls. If you come up for a one-day trip, typically you will put in from our campground and raft about 10 miles downstream. The first hour or so of the trip is actually just pretty mellow. It's beautiful. There's not too many big rapids. You get accustomed to how you're going to sit in the raft, kind of get cozy, and then the second half of the day is when the bigger Class 3 rapids will happen. Beautiful wildlife. Okay, you're not going to see mountain lions. I don't know if I should double check that. Don't be worried about mountain lions. That's not a problem. Our biggest problem are like raccoons. I have seen river otters twice this year on the river already, and I've only been up maybe 10 times, so that's awesome. In October, November, kind of next river canyon over or two, the Yuba River. It's one of the only places in California, I think it might be the last, where we have wild salmon running in the fall for their spawning. So we run float trips on the weekends in October and early November, maybe to that first weekend in November. And actually we have naturalists on each boat with us. You get to learn about the life cycle of salmon and get to see them spawning. They're all over the place. It's fantastic. For rafting, we take two types of rafts down the river. One would be a paddle raft. This is where we have one guide in the back, and then everybody in the boat has their own paddle, and you're kind of sitting on this outside edge of the tube. So you need some fairly good trunk stability to be able to be in a paddle boat and actively paddling. Excuse me. Our other type of rafts are oar frame rafts. It's the same size boat, but this time we have one guide on the oars, and they do all the work to get you down the river. And we have a variety of ways we can rig the front of the boat to set up different supportive seating structures, such that you can just kind of sit down and enjoy. Typically, we put more able-bodied people on either side, or depending on our level of ability, we can have a few people with needs accommodations in the front. We kind of talk to everybody personally and figure out what your needs will be. But basically, you can hang out in the front of the raft and enjoy the adventure. Some of the adaptations, kind of like this, we will, you know, those great plastic lawn chairs, we pretty much chop the legs off, pad them up, strap those in the boat. So this is like a really good option for somebody who needs a little more trunk stability. We have extra wheelchairs at the camp, so you can leave yours in your nice protected car, and we'll take some extras down the river with us. All our guides are trained at doing transfers and getting everybody in and out. So that's whitewater rafting in a nutshell. Our season pretty much runs Memorial Day through the end of September. Any questions about rafting? I know we're supposed to do a big question section at the end, but while we're here, yes? It's pretty much just floating down, yeah. And we can make any sort of accommodations for that one as well. I think those trips are going to start like October 12th through that first weekend in November. Oh, yes, to repeat that question, the question that was asked was the rafting on the Yuba River. That's no rapids, it's just a float trip to see the salmon, yes. And yes, we can make accommodations for that. Any other questions about rafting? There's not a lot of falls, but the last 2 years, the number of salmon have been growing exponentially. It's pretty shallow what we're rafting down, so we're going to be just maybe on a foot or two of water. The question was, how are you going to see the salmon? What does it look like when they're going up? So the water's pretty shallow, so as you're floating down, but it's a pretty wide river, and they're just cruising up, and there's actually just hundreds and thousands of them. So as we float downstream, they're kind of coming upstream and just hanging out. So it's literally just a matter of looking over the side of the boat. We'll stop in certain places, and naturalists will get out. We can pick some up. It's a pretty cool experience. We just have to cross our fingers this year with the current drought situation that the Yuba River is actually flowing the way we think it is still going to at that time of year, and that there is enough water for both the salmon and then even more water for us to be rafting on it. But as of right now, we're still predicting that we can have the salmon season. Any other questions for rafting? All right, moving on, sea kayaking. We have lots of different options for sea kayaking. We have 2 different kayak outpost bases. The first one is based out of Sausalito, and we run day trips to San Francisco Bay, and especially around the Sausalito houseboat area. And we can also run overnight trips to Angel Island. And if it is an overnight trip to Angel Island, we get to stay at some of these Civil War era historic buildings that are on the island. We're one of the only organizations that are allowed to spend the night in those buildings. There's 2 that we're allowed in. That's kind of like modified camping. We're indoors, or you can sleep out if you want, but indoors kind of on pads that we provide. You bring your own sleeping bag, so it's not like you're getting a bed when you're in the building, but at least you're in this great historic building. So we do day trips. We can do overnight trips to Angel Island. Sausalito. We'll get to the adaptations and the types of kayaks we use in a moment. Tomales Bay, up in the Point Reyes National Seashore area. Again, we can do day trips or overnight trips there. If we do overnight trips, they are a little more rustic. We are definitely camping out at that point, tents and whatnot. It's a much more rustic, beautiful area, really pristine waters. It is a national seashore. It's protected, so it's not like there's going to be a lot of tides or currents. Might get windy a couple times a year, but lots of amazing wildlife. Whales do come in. You're seeing tons of seals, lots of bird life. Beautiful, beautiful trips. And every year we even do a night paddle there because those waters have the bioluminescent algae where when you take a paddle stroke, the water will start to sparkle and glow from the algae that's in there. So we do a night paddle once a year as well, and you can paddle and see the water kind of glowing as you go by. It's pretty cool. Tomales Bay is just a hop, skip, and a jump up from San Francisco. So if this is the Golden Gate Bridge, it's about an hour drive, maybe less if you're not getting traffic, up to where we put in this red spot. Imagine that's blue water. It's the whole bay. It's actually a whole bay of water, and we put in around Heart's Desire, which is right around there. Kayaking. Anybody can kayak. We take out double and triple boats, so that means we have 2 to 3 people in each kayak. They are super stable. I can't guarantee that you'll never flip over, knock on wood, but for the most part, these boats are really sturdy, and unless you're trying to flip over, you're going to be pretty secure. We have, this is a picture over at Angel Island. Again, our guys are trained with working with transfers. The beach up at Tomales Bay, we have a little more amount of sand to cover to get down to the water, but they kind of chopped it off in this picture. I'm sorry, I feel like my slide's a little better. We actually can like adapt and make a little kayak car where we can get you into the kayak closer to the parking lot and actually have the kayak up on wheels and just kind of wheel the whole thing down, or we can get everybody closer to the water and then do the transfer in there. We have special hand mitts if somebody doesn't have very good grip strength with their hand. We have these mitts that will help you hold on to the paddle. If you have a visual impairment, have markers on the paddle so you know where and how to hold it. Lots of different adaptations we can make. Even folks who really can't hold the paddle or do anything, but they still want to get out on the water, we can put them in the middle of a triple, and we just get stronger paddlers in the front and the back of the boat steering, and we're good to go. So there's lots of different adaptations there. We can do day trips, overnight trips. Any questions about the kayaking? It's really fun. It is beautiful, especially as we move into fall. That's actually the best weather out on the bay. It's clearer, less foggy. You know, you're paddling from Sausalito over to Angel Island. You get the whole city skyline. You see the Golden Gate Bridge. You get to hang out on the island itself, paddle back the next day. We can skip the chairs out there in a motorboat. I think we also have an extra backup or 2 that are out there as well. And just a matter of making it up the short hill, which is pretty easy. We can get everybody up, and then once you're up there, it's accessible. They're pretty good. I think we also have a couple of cots out there now as well. So if you were to call and make a reservation, ask about cot options so that it's even raised more off the ground to make it easier for transfers. Yeah. All right. Any other kayaking questions? Okay. Moving right along. Woohoo! Cross-country skiing. Let's hope we have snow this winter. And if we do, we will have a cross-country skiing season. What we do for this is ETC rents a cabin. So Riverland we own, the kayaks we own, and we have permanent storage containers in Sausalito and Tomales Bay. Every year we rent a new cabin up in Arnold, California, close to Bear Valley, California. And people come up for typically like a 2.5-day trip. We can definitely make shorter trips for you. But most folks, say you're coming up for a weekend adventure, you would arrive on like a Friday night. When you get there that Friday night, we have all of the winter clothing you would need to go play in the snow. We don't expect any of our participants to have their own winter gear. They did, they're probably going out on their own and not coming on a trip with us, making it accessible. So when you're up there Friday night, we'll outfit you in ski pants and long underwear and ski jackets and goggles or sunglasses and gloves and warm hats. So that way you're all set with your clothes Friday night. Saturday morning, we will drive from our cabin up to Bear Valley Nordic Center. And our cabin is always a little bit lower elevation, so it doesn't snow as much there. It's easier driving up, a little less chains needed. So we drive from there up in the morning. It's about a 40-minute drive up to where we actually go skiing. And we have a variety of adaptations we can make for that. We have sit skis where if somebody has good upper body strength, they can use a sit ski and just propel themselves along the cross-country ski tracks through the beautiful meadows. It's pretty flat out there. For folks who can stand with a little bit of assistance, we do have some modified walkers. They're kind of like extra wide, so they would fit over the skis, and we have put skis themselves on the walkers, so you can just kind of like ski and walk and go. We also have snowshoes, so if somebody isn't as stable on the skis with this setup, we can put them on snowshoes, and then that works really well. We also have a couple of sleds. So we can just have folks in sleds and work together with our volunteer guides and just kind of help tow you to get out to the snow. There's a great warming hut just about a quarter mile in on the trail. It's a great place with picnic tables, beautiful spot to have a lunch. For some groups that come up, making it to the warming hut, that quarter mile in is fantastic, and that's as far as they go, and then they stop and have some snowball fights and they're happy. Other groups can actually get out and explore the miles of trails that are around. It kind of just depends on the ability level for the group. You can kind of choose your own adventure once you get out there for how far or big you want to go. So that would be like the Saturday, and then we come back to the cabin that night. And we have fun time in the cabin. I'm going to go back to the cabin pictures. Play some games, drink the hot chocolate. We try to have it be a no phone zone, so no electronic tablets, back to the old days of board games and card games and storytelling and actually hanging out with real life people face to face. What a concept. So it's a great time. So it's 2 nights in the cabin. And then Sunday, we'll head out to Big Tree State Park and go see some of the giant sequoias. It's accessible trails into where the trees are, depending on the snow level. There may be snow on the ground, there may not be, but we can go check out the trails around there, have lunch, and then people typically leave from there to head home on that Sunday. So it's kind of like a 2.5-day adventure. Winter trips. Any questions about the winter trips? Awesome. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's groomed trails, and then we've got the track system as well. And the tracks work really well for people with visual impairments, because once they kind of get their skis into the track system, as long as they stay in the tracks, they can go at their own pace and just be free and have a great time. Yes. Yeah, I think we have like 3 different sizes of skis. Right. Yes, thank you. Okay, so question. The last question asked was, Is there a limit to the size of the group that can come up because we are limited to the cabin space? And the answer to that is yes. Typically, if it is an able-bodied group, we could handle maybe 20, 25 people max, and that's getting in there pretty tight. If we're working with some accommodations, maybe some chair users or whatnot, we would need to pare that back a little bit just to give a little bit more space. Pardon me? Of course you can bring your spouses. For all of our ETC trips, our trips work one of two ways. And I'll say this again on our last slide. The question was, are spouses welcome who can come on the trips? Our trips work one of two ways. If you have a group of 10 or more people, you can make your own private trip for the day or dates of your choosing, and we set you guys up as your own group. Perfect, done and done. If you have a smaller group than that, it's just you and your spouse, maybe one or two friends, what we offer are individual trips. So we will hand pick a variety of our trips throughout the whole of the sports, and those individuals can sign up for the trip. So we have an Angel Island overnight coming up. You know, 1, 2, or 3 people can sign up for that. For our ski individual weekends, same sort of thing. You can sign up for 1 to 5 people. If your group starts getting bigger, then we can start talking about doing your own private trip for that day. Same thing with the rafting. 10 or more, we'll make your own trip. Less than that, join in on one of our pre-existing ones. For the skiing or for the other stuff? Everywhere we go, we'll have accessible accommodations, or it wouldn't be an ETC trip. That being said, full disclosure, the cabin we've been using for the last 2 years for the winter program, we just got word from the owners about 2 weeks ago that they are selling the cabin. So we are not going to be able to use that cabin again this year. So at this point, I cannot predict how accessible our new cabin for the next season will be. So we might have to play that one by ear. And the winter season lasts basically second weekend in January through mid-April. That's kind of the window for that one. We can do both. The question is for the whitewater, or not for the cross-country skiing, do we need to put our own group together, or are there times we can just come in and join in? The answer is you can do both. If you have your own larger group, we can create a trip for you. If it is probably less than 8 people, then I would recommend joining our winter individuals trip, and we will have 1 or 2 weekends pre-designated. It's kind of early. We haven't picked which weekends those will be for next season yet, but typically there'll be 1 weekend in February and 1 weekend in April that will be anybody can come and join. Group of 10 or more is ideal. If you're booking a midweek, we might be able to get you down to 8, but don't quote me on that. 10 or more is our go-to advertising line. But we'll always work with you. We're not going to turn you away because you have 9 people, you know. Okay, so the location for the winter cabin, here we are down in San Jose. It's about a 4-hour drive, 3 to 4 hour drive up to Arnold, California, and then we drive up the hill just a little bit more to go skiing in Bear Valley. Our last program, I probably won't go into that much detail on. It is our youth leadership program. Lead, leadership, environment, adventure, diversity, woo! We typically offer 4 to 5 summer courses for teenagers. They are 12 to 24-day long intensive courses, where on those courses for the full 24 days, they are kayaking, then backpacking, then rafting, and maybe doing a farm stay. Typically, we follow a watershed, and we kind of teach some environmental education stewardship as we follow the watershed. Our 12-day course is specifically kayaking and rafting, and that is an accessible course. So we specifically tailor that one where we can make accommodations for somebody with a physical disability. Our other courses, because they typically have a backpacking component, are a little harder to make accommodations, but depending on what we would need to make room for, we could possibly make it happen. But the 12-day course for sure is accessible for everybody. On a side note, we then, in our office in San Francisco, will kind of do a follow-up program with about 7 of the graduates from that summer's programs. And we do a school year-long, basically an internship. We call it the Youth Lead Fellowship. And we train those 7 high school students to become outdoor leaders. And we teach them to become junior guides, where they will lead kayaking trips and cross-country skiing trips for their peers. Some of the other youth groups that come in will have our youth fellows be the ones doing the safety talks and the lessons and leading the group for the day. Of course, we have actual trained guide adults with them, but we try to give the kids as much, 14 and up. Yeah, it's a great program. How to get involved. So, feet and riding, if you have a group of 10 or more, book a private trip for what you want to do on a date of your choice. The rafting season goes Memorial Day through the end of September. Kayak season is almost all year at this point, especially with the mild winters we've been having. We can pretty much take you anytime at this point. Our winter program, January through April. If you are going solo or have a smaller group, you can join an individuals trip. And everybody who came into the room got this flyer. These were the dates and times for our various individuals trips for this summer season. I'm sorry I wasn't able to come present earlier because some of these dates have passed already. But this gives you a good snippet for what we have to offer every year. And these trips pretty much come up every year, pretty much about the same time frame. So if you see something we didn't quite get on this year, know that you can book a private trip up for it anytime you want, or wait for the next individual to roll around sometime the following year. Excuse me, one thing I didn't mention, or I kind of have in passing, is that one of the ways ETC works to make this affordable and to be able to accommodate over 2,000 people a year on these 4 programs is that we have an amazing group of volunteer guides. I would say 90% of our guides volunteer their time and energy to come on all of these trips and help you. They've all gone through extensive training in that sport, as well as going through a 2-day disability awareness workshop training with kind of how to do transfers and how to work with all of the various disabilities that come through, and we see everything. We have visually impaired, deaf and hard of hearing, MS, chronic illness, CP, everybody comes through. So we train our folks on how to work with all of the different groups. And there's nothing stopping anybody in this room or anybody out there in the webcast land to becoming a volunteer. We do our trainings at a specific time each year. If you are interested in kayaking, every April we'll do 2 weekends of training and then a night of training. So it's 2 long weekends, like a 3-day weekend, and then a 4-day weekend, and then 1 night follow-up in like April, May. For whitewater rafting, it is a solid week of training, 9 days, like a Saturday to the following Sunday. For cross-country skiing, if you wanted to be a volunteer cross-country ski guide, we always do that training the first weekend of January, typically arrive on a Friday night and stay through Monday afternoon. And once you go through training and have first aid and CPR, then we'll get you out as a guide who can go on our trips and access the equipment and all that fun stuff. So become a volunteer. Or at the very least, help us out by just spreading the word that we exist. You know, we serve about 2,000 people a year, but nobody in this room really knew about us, so just tell people that we are out there. We can work with everybody, and we can come up with a trip that fits your needs, where you want to go. Sometimes we also do far-flung adventures. Every spring we do a kayak Baja trip down in Baja, Mexico, outside of La Paz. We kayak out to some islands and spend a week paddling around these islands, totally accessible. Motorboat skiffs follow us, so we have extra support. In 2016, we will do an 18-day rafting trip down the Grand Canyon. That will be phenomenal. Historically speaking, there's been a trip kayaking to Italy before. Every now and then we get out there and go big. This fall, we have a kayaking trip up in Mendocino, where we'll spend one day paddling on the Mendocino River that's there, and then the second day paddling out in the sea caves. Again, totally accessible. We stay at a great old farmhouse that's up there. So there's a lot of other opportunities too. So if you have an idea for a trip, talk to us. We can help make anything happen. And it wouldn't be a nonprofit if we didn't throw in at the very end, hey, you can always give us money. We do most of our funding through grants and individual donations. And then the small part of our income is actually through charging people what it costs to come on the trip. And all of our trips are sliding scale scholarships. Don't be afraid to ask. We can slide that scale down pretty far, so just let us know what'll work for you and we will work with you.
What's that full price?
Full prices, you kind of see them on the individual trip. So the question was, what would like a full price cost trip for the day be? We even have kind of like a sliding scale, this cost system for what the group is. If you are a full, able-bodied, work for a corporation, looks like you've got money person coming in, and you want to go rafting for a day, we're probably going to charge you about $100 for the day. If you are somebody with a disability, we're probably going to charge you about $70 a day, but we can slide down from there. If somebody needs an attendance will always go for free, because we know you couldn't go unless they were there with you. So attendance will go for free. Kayaking, our typical one-day cost for an able-bodied group with money is probably, again, about $60, $70 a day, but for somebody with a disability or an at-risk youth, we'll start at $50 a day and work down. I've seen kayak trips go out at $25 a person. So it's just kind of depends on what the needs are and how we can make it happen. Yeah, good questions. Any other questions? Of course. The catch there is how or who is going to help take care of the dog when you're out on the adventure. Our river camp is about 100 degrees. You're going to be rafting on the water for about 5 hours. We really don't want the dog on the water with you, so to have dog in camp without somebody there looking after him, that gets a little trickier. And, you know, same thing with kayaking. If you're heading out, you're gone for a couple of hours, dog's not going to be with you. But the venues themselves and the camping, we can definitely work with that. Always just ask. The winter cabin, of course. Yeah, so. Yes, question. Right. Okay, so the question for those in webcam land was, what if somebody who has a spinal cord injury is fairly unstable and prone to falling? How would that work on our trips? I would say we can work really well with that. The distance going from car to put in for most of our kayaking and rafting trips is very short, and we can definitely have people help supporting to get, you know, from vehicle to watercraft. Once you are in the boats, rafting for sure, that won't be a problem. We can always change the way the rafts and the oar frames are set up, such that we can have a chair, we can have people on either side helping with stability. You slip down a little bit, no big deal, you come back up. Kayaking, the question is going to be more of balance. We can use padding to prop the trunk up in the cockpit. So as long as that works, great. But if there's a lot of kind of flailing side-to-side motion that's uncontrollable, that possibly may not work for the kayak because that could make it a little tippier. But if it's just a matter of overall balance, we can work with that. And for the cross-country skiing, probably have to go to the sled option because then you'll just basically be sitting down the whole time and somebody else will be working with moving you across the snow, so we can do that one as well. That's not as actively involved though. Yes. Yes. Typically the night paddle trips will go till about 10 o'clock-ish and then we'll call it. Yes. How are we? Oh, there's not, there's no times on there. How good is our internet here? That's a really good question. I'm checking my server. Okay, that's not going to work. Good question. Call the kayak program manager and ask. His name is Oren. He's awesome. On the bottom of the flyers for the individual trips, we have the direct line for river trips and for the sea kayaking trips. We never take just like online reservations because we always want to talk to our people and make sure we can make the accommodations that are necessary and quell everybody's fears before you come out there, because I know this is a little scary for folks. So we always want to have a live conversation with you, you know, work on the price, work on the accommodations to book the trip. So it never hurts just to call and say, hey, what are those times? They also should be on our website, etctrips.org. If you go to the kayak page or the rafting page, there'll be more specific information about each trip. Yes?
So how old do you have to be? What's the youngest?
What's the young question is, what's the youngest age? Ideally 10 years of age or older for our trips. If we have kind of a more mature 8-year-old for a kayaking trip and there's just one of them, we might be able to make an exception. If it is a whole school class of 8-year-olds, we can't deal with that. So 10 and up. Realistically though, it's 45 pounds and up for our trips that require life jackets. So the kayaking and the rafting, we need to have a minimum of 45 pounds for that life jacket to be able to fit them appropriately. Great questions. Any other questions?
Little separate than that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was here 5 years ago in the hospital, they had a video of what things you can do. And they had guys on a plane going to Colorado going to the ski resort and and had a 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
You guys do anything like that?
No. Right. For this area, you've got us doing these 4 sports, well, I should say 3 sports. BORP, which is an nonprofit based out of Berkeley, will do some hand cycling adventures and then different chair sports, Powerball, that sort of stuff. In terms of outdoor things that I know of, aside from the downhill skiing out of Alpine Meadows Ski Resort, there's not a whole lot right here. There's an agency called Explore out of Utah that will do some whitewater rafting and other accessible trips based out of Utah. And Breckenridge also has an accessible company, but in Northern California, let me know if you find somebody who's doing something similar. I just haven't really come across it, unfortunately. Any other questions? Didn't even think. We've got a video. I could have shown a video. There's a video on our website. Go check it out. You'll see us in action. Any other questions? Yes, in the back. The question is a passport required for the Baja trip? I think. Okay, I don't have the exact answer. The peanut gallery is saying yes. But in theory, can't you just use driver's license? Okay. Okay, peanut gallery saying yes. I will defer to the experts in the room. There you go. I don't want to come home. All right, I think that was pretty good on time, yeah? Are we? Okay. Thank you guys for letting us come.